where is this rampant anti-Semitism come from? I feel like everywhere I look, I see it. And to me, there are two uncomfortable truths with respect to why the Jewish people are so successful. But also, if we're unwilling to confront, acknowledge, and embrace these uncomfortable truths, it can lead to undercurrents, or it can lead to this kind of fountaining of Jewish hatred or anti-Semitism. So what I want to do today is just put my finger on what those two uncomfortable truths are and help you understand what they are so that you can keep your eyes wide open. So the first, this is the convenient untruth, the blue pill, and this is the inconvenient, uncomfortable truth, the red pill. The convenient blue pill untruth is that all cultures are equal. This is not true. If we take a particular metric, now you can go watch the video called something like Why Too Much Multiculturalism is Bad if you want a deeper dive into this, but you might just take the standard of, let's just take a particular metric like economic prosperity, right? The production of goods within a marketplace and the reward for such production. Now, not all cultures are going to be equally good at producing, or not all cultures are going to be equally productive. And the uncomfortable truth is that some cultures are better. And I think you can look to particular ways in which particular cultures are better, say for example economic production, or you can assess across a myriad of benchmarks, hey, which of these cultures is doing better, and then you might make a more holistic assessment of this culture is outperforming this culture more holistically. So as an example, right, let's say that the goal was economic productivity. And let's say that we've got one group of people over here and one group of people over here. Okay, and let's say that the only difference between them is the ideas that they hold and live out. Okay, so this is group one. This is group two. And let's say that some of the ideas that this group holds out, or holds and lives out, are might is right. So if I have the power or the means to get what I want, then I'm entitled to do so, full stop. And we might also have another one that is, you say what you need. Insofar as you don't necessarily speak what is true, you don't hold yourself accountable to being your word, you say what you need in order to get what it is that you want or need. This culture, on the other hand, culture 2, might have the belief that speak truthfully, lest the Lord smite you. Right? Which might be another way of saying, be your word, otherwise reality will come back to smack you in the face. Okay? Now, which of these two groups, if they had equal opportunity, they're both plonked in the same vicinity, which of these two groups is going to be more economically productive? These guys, of course, right? Because they have a higher degree of trust with one another, which makes teamwork possible, which makes specialization possible, which leads to greater social capital. Right? All other things being equal, this group, born of the trust that emerges from the living out of this standard, be your word, lest the Lord smite you or reality come back to smack you in the face, means that they will outcompete this culture over here. And so in this respect, if the benchmark here was economic productivity, you can pick another benchmark if you want, right? But if the benchmark is, say, economic productivity, you can say that some cultures are going to be better than others. Now, again, you could pick some other benchmark. You might say like basketball performance, right? And the Jews are not particularly talented, nor do they value basketball performance, say, as much as African American culture. And so in that respect, you might say African American culture, if the benchmark we're looking at is basketball performance, right? Some cultures are going to be better than others in cultivating those particular skills, as an example. And then you can also zoom out and then look at cultures more holistically and go, okay, well, say which culture is better at if the benchmark is overcoming the suffering that's baked into being for as many people as possible, which culture is better. All you need to be able to do here is say that some ideas, if you believe that some ideas, if some ideas are better than others, right? You can have a good idea and a bad idea. You know, maybe like, doing things which amplify unnecessarily human suffering. If you can say that's a bad idea and there are other ideas that are better, then you kind of have to admit there are some good ideas, bad ideas. There's a hierarchy of good and bad ideas. And then the downstream conclusion from that is that some cultures, which is just a set of ideas collectively held and then lived out, are going to be better than others. So this is the first uncomfortable truth, is that in certain areas, you can very easily say that Jewish culture is superior. Okay, that's the first uncomfortable truth. Second uncomfortable truth, I'm going to start with the comfortable untruth, which is that all people are equal in all respects. And this is not true. Now, the grain of truth in this is perhaps the Judeo-Christian notion that each and every human being has a spark or an element of the divine in them that makes them worthy of human rights, as an example. It doesn't matter how productive you are, doesn't matter how successful you are worthy of just as much human dignity as I am, as they are, regardless of our, say, material fruits. Where this becomes untrue, and where we need to be very careful here, is... Oh, my Mac's about to die. Give me one sec. Okay, the inconvenient truth here is that... I'm not even sure it's appropriate to say unfortunately. It's just the fact is that not all human beings are equal in all respects, right? So I'm just going to give you a really, really obvious example here, right? There are some races who have a higher average height as compared to other races, right? Take African Americans over here, perhaps, and Asians over here. Now, who's going to perform better on basketball, right? If you take these two groups of people, pardon me, touching the mic. If you take these two groups of people, who's going to outperform if the metric or the benchmark that, the thing that we're optimizing for is performance in the NBA? Obviously, this group over here is going to win. And no one sees this, or no one sees the overrepresentation of African Americans in the NBA as evidence of discrimination, unfair discrimination against Asians, right? Like, nobody thinks that way. But then for some reason, we lose our faculty for reason as soon as it comes to cognitive ability. So we're willing to say that not all human beings are equal with respect to talent when it comes to basketball or even other physical tasks. So it's like we're willing to acknowledge all biological differences below the neck. We're not willing to say, however, that there is any difference between races or ethnic groups with respect to cognitive ability. And this is an uncomfortable truth that I think we need to confront, right? Because, again, let's just take two groups of people. Now, I'm going to let you look into IQ differences between different races in your own time and go deep on that. But essentially, you can think about it to begin with that it's 50-50 nature-nurture, roughly. It looks like it could be 30-70 either way, right? So we'll settle for 50-50 for the moment. There's an element of nurture, there's an element of nature. But what I will say is that let's say that you have a group of people over here, a group of people over here. Actually, and I'm just going to draw the people on the right, the Jewish, with a big head, right? To just symbolize higher average IQ. Now, if you take these two groups and you plonk them in the same environment with the same opportunities, and the market, right, me and you, the consumer, rewards the fruits of cognitive ability. We like and we pay for people who are capable of complex, abstract reasoning, right? Taking this underlying reality and all of its complexities, abstracting it, and then thinking through it in a lot of detail, and then providing solutions to the people, right? Who's going to win? It's going to be the group with the higher IQ. Now, if you have two different outcomes between these two groups, it's not necessarily because this group over here on the right has unfairly oppressed or discriminated against this group on the left, right? But if we are just swallowing these blue pills of untruth, these convenient blue pills, then you're going to see, I think, you could see the Jewish people thriving. And it's if you are basing your worldview off those two core premises that are untrue, that all cultures are equal. It's like, it's not very sophisticated. Equal in what way? All cultures are equal. And then also that all people are equal with respect to their abilities, which is not true. And we're willing to acknowledge this below the neck, but then we're not willing to acknowledge it above the neck for some reason. And I think it's partly because the problem is that in the modern era, right? A modern problem, very modern problem that we have not yet solved is that we as a people are more and more rewarding cognitive ability, right? Less and less are we rewarding physical labor. So those individuals and groups who might have been less cognitively able, but more physically able, had something of value to contribute to the economy, right? So if you weren't cognitively blessed, let's say, you might have been physically blessed and you had something to do. You had a skill that the rest of the market would reward you with. But now the problem is, right, if we come back to here, it's like the smarties over here are creating automations and robotics and software, etc., that are essentially making redundant the physical labor that this lower IQ group of individuals would have been rewarded for in the past. So we have an economy that is more and more valuing cognitive ability. And what does this mean, right? What does this mean? How do we handle that? Because that's great for the groups of people who have a higher cognitive ability or a higher IQ. It's not so great for the groups of people who have a lower IQ. And then at what point, right? Like what happens to those people? Because we're going to expect a growing disparity with respect to the inequalities, say for example, the economic inequalities between high IQ groups and lower IQ groups. What to do about it, right? That is a modern problem. But I digress. Coming back to this, right? If you are unwilling to acknowledge that, sorry, some cultures are better than others, right? That's the first uncomfortable truth. And second uncomfortable truth, some races or groups do have a higher cognitive ability, just as some other groups have greater height and greater physical ability in different areas. You're going to see the Jewish people prosper. You're going to see their success wherever you pop them, and you're going to think these guys are rigging the game. And that might not necessarily be a conscious thought, but you have to understand that if you have grown up with these two blue pills at the core of your worldview, then when you see a group of people succeeding, then it's like unless you test your core assumptions, it's going to be natural for resentment and hatred to arise. And so I think part of the antidote to that is acknowledging these two uncomfortable truths very forthrightly, and then as a collective going, okay, well, given these two uncomfortable truths, we have to expect a degree of disparity between different ethnic groups and different cultures, right? That's one. And then two, we can ask ourselves, okay, what do we do? At what point does that disparity or that inequality in outcome become a significant problem, and what do we do about it? So all that said, I hope that you found this video somewhat insightful, and I'll see you in the next one.